Hello and welcome to lesson 8.1 for 5th grade math. We're on page 275 and we are finding areas of plane surfaces today. Just a heads up before we begin, please make sure you have a calculator with you for this lesson. It doesn't have to be a physical calculator that you hold in your hand. A cell phone, iPad, computer where you just Google calculator or type it into your toolbar. Those all will work. Now, let's get down to it. We are going to be basically planning out our own sports complex or athletic center over the next couple of days. And since you're working at home, my big recommendation here will be to take your time on this. With my class, I'm splitting this up among multiple days, if not a week, just because I know you have so many other subjects you're focusing on. So we're going to take a look at least the first 4 today, how to figure out the dimensions in the area of beach volleyball, karate, judo, and football area. But first, let's talk about what's actually going on. What's the situation? And it tells us that a town is planning to build an athletic center on some unused land. The planners are trying to figure out the areas of all playing surfaces from a variety of sports. Help the planners by finding the area of each playing surface in square feet. Show your work on the grid below and use another sheet of paper if you need more space. So this is kind of a real life problem where if you're building an athletic center or really anything, you have to know the size of the things that you're planning on installing or including. So in this case, we're going to take a look and see if we can find the area of many different plane surfaces. So before we really dig in, I want to point something out to you. Will you please look at the dimensions really quick? And do you notice how they're all in feet? That means everything we do is going to have to be in feet. And if you look at the dimensions that they give us, in some cases it's partly feet. Some cases it's entirely feet, which will make it easy for us. And in some cases it's not feet at all. So I'm going to show you how to convert these dimensions to match our plane surface, and so we can find the actual area of these surfaces. So why don't we start with beach volleyball for number 1. And the beach volleyball surface is 52 feet 6 inches by 26 feet 3 inches. The first thing we need to do here is convert this entirely to feet. And that means we're going to, instead of keeping these guys at inches, we're going to turn them into fractions of feet. So we know that 1 foot equals 12 inches, right? So they're telling us here it's 52 feet and 6 inches. If you had to turn that into a fraction, I'm trying to think of a good way to answer or to ask this question. 1 full foot is 12 inches. So 6 inches, you might notice, is exactly half of 12. So that means it's actually also equal to half of a foot. So we're going to convert this 6 inches and just call this first dimension 52 and 1/2 feet. Okay, so 1 has already been converted. Now let's take a look at 3 inches. You might even notice that 3 is half of 6. Am I still on the screen? A little bit. And the question I'm going to have to you is, how many 3s can you fit into 12? And I bet you could go 3, 6, 9, 12. You can fit 4 3s into an entire foot, which means just 1 3 would be 1 piece out of 4. So we might use this for future dimensions. 6 inches will be a half foot. 3 inches is 1/4 of a foot. It's 1 piece of 12. 1 out of 4 pieces that we would need to reach 12. So that means 26 feet and 3 inches will convert to 26 feet and 1/4 of another foot, because we found out that 3 inches is 1/4 of a foot. Okay, so now we need to find the area. And there's really, You can use a calculator if you have one that works with fractions, but what's going to happen a lot of times is you're going to get like a decimal answer, and we want an exact fraction answer. So my recommendation for you here is to go back and create yourself an area model. Remember the area models that we worked on in Unit 7? And before that too, I think. So I'm going to create an area model here for 52.5. So we'll have a section of 52.5. And then 26.1/4. And if you forgot how to use an area model, you can just follow my lead here. We'll need to split these two up. So now we have 4 zones we need to multiply because we're finding the area. And then we'll take everything we get and add it together at the end to find the total area. So why don't we start with 26 times 1/2, which is like, what's half of 26? And I know, I'm just going to fill this in for you guys. I happen to know that 2 13s equal 26. So that means if you split 26 in half, right down the middle, it would be 13. And you can check that on your calculator by doing 26 times 0.5. That's one of those calculations that actually does work pretty well for us. Now let's do 1/2 times 1/4. Am I on the screen? Yes, I am. I think. We're just going to multiply across 1/8. Now this is where your calculator will come in handy. 26 times 52. You can just go ahead and put that right into your calculator. If you want, you can solve it by hand. We have a way to do that. You can use partial products. Lattice. You can use lattice for this one if you wanted. But I went ahead and used my calculator because it's quick and it's what people would do if they're trying to figure out the area of a surface. And it's 1,352. And then lastly, we have 52 times 1/4, which is like 52 times 0.25. Or another way you could do it is 52 and divide it into 4 pieces. And if you take 52 and divide it into 4 pieces, you're going to end up with 13, which should look familiar. So our job here now to find the total area for our first plane surface is to take all these pieces and add them together. And again, you can use a calculator if you want. You could even just go like, I'll show you the manual way. I would personally start with the big number up top, 1,352. Add the 13 from here and another 13 from there. I'll add the whole numbers first, and then we'll just tack the fraction on at the end. 2 plus 3 plus 3, that would be 8. 5 plus 1 plus 1, 7. 3, 1. Okay. And then all we have to do after that is add on our 1/8. So we can shift back over and we have the area of our beach volleyball surface, 1,378 1/8 feet. And that's area, so it should be feet squared. Okay, good news about number 2 is we don't have to do anything except just use our calculator or lattice or standard multiplication because it's already in feet. There's no leftovers. It's just going to be 26 by 26. So that I'll leave for you. I'm not even going to solve that one. I'm going to save time and just have you do that. And instead I'm going to jump to judo, which even judo, just by completing number 1 the way we did, that's going to help us with judo. Because you'll notice, again, we need to be in feet, which means we need to translate or convert these 6 inches into feet. And watch, this is why it's so good to do your work on a separate piece of paper and take notes. We already did that conversion for number 1. We found out that 6 inches is equal to half of a foot, which means we don't have to take any time on these dimensions. We can just say, oh, anytime we see 6 inches, it just means half a foot. So it'll be 52.5 feet by 52.5 feet. And again, we can go to the area model. I'm whispering like it's a secret, but there's another way with this one that actually might not be too shabby. We might be able to do it with a calculator. And that would be to just take 52.5 and convert that to a decimal, which is the equivalent of half is just like the decimal 0.5. So we can do 52.5 times 52.5, but in decimal form. And now you can use a calculator. And let me throw it up and try it out. And it looks like you get an answer that ends with this. And I'm going to throw another tip at you. So I'll let you see if you can figure out what the beginning is. The end should end with 0.25. And the fraction version 0.25 is the equivalent of 1/4. So this is basically, this is a quarter, this is a quarter. Can you tell why a quarter is worth 25 cents now? It's basically 1/4 of a dollar. It's a quarter. Okay, so for judo, just do 52.5 times 52.5, and I'll let you fill in this part. It should end with a 0.25, which we translate to 1/4. So the end of the area for this one will be, 1/4 feet squared with a big number in front of it. Now let's see if I have enough time to fill out this third one, which is going to be our football field with no end zones. And we have a tricky part here. I'm going to throw in another conversion. We're dealing with yards. I have 3 minutes to tell this to you guys because I can only upload 15 minutes at a time. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. You may already recall that. But what that means is if we have 100 yards, that's going to be like doing 100 3 times to find the foot equivalent, because 1 yard's 3 feet. So it's going to be like doing 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 100 times. And what is 100 times 3? And in your head, you should be like, oh, well, 100, 200, 300. So that first little step there is going to be 300. Now, for part 2, we're going to have to do the same thing with 53 times 3, which I think equals, let me think about this, 50, 100, 150, 153, 156, 159. Okay, so the 53 part will be 159. Let me write this out. 53 times 3 equals, let me check my work, 9. Cool. Okay, so we got the whole number part done, but now we need to do 1/3 of a yard times 3. And for this, you can just say like, okay, if you had 1/3, how much would you have if you took that and multiply it by 3? That would be like 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, which equals 3/3, right? Which is like having an entire another whole. So let's take 159 and add the 1 whole, and what do you get all together? We get 160 feet. And I feel like I apologize a lot, but I'm going to do it again. I have to go through this quickly because I can't make videos longer than 15 minutes right now, and it cuts me off. YouTube has not opened that up for me yet. So I try to squeeze it in a short amount of time. So if you don't understand that, you can go back and rewatch. But either way, this is where we should end up, 300 feet by 160. And it's going to be up to you to multiply those two together to find the area in feet squared. And that will be it for day number 1 for lesson 8.1. At least for my class, I'm going to assign these next 4 for tomorrow. Okay guys, I'll see you for part 2 in a moment.